Sean Kaleo, he did say I pronounced it right, so thank you, Sean, once again for the question. What would be a realistic trade for Jimmy? A second and a fourth? Let's get. I didn't put that topic down, but let's get your take on that. What do you think would be realistic for Jimmy?
A third. A third, maybe a conditional third I can turn to a second based on active games, because I think people are still going to worry about his health. And right. I know he only missed 2.5 games. Well, I guess the stat sheet people are going to see is that the 2 games he missed. He still, the fact that he didn't miss games, he still had those injuries. The fact people are still going to look at he's still injury prone. Just because you're injury prone doesn't mean you miss games. It just means you get injured a lot. So, and the fact that you miss games as much as Garoppolo does makes it worse. Now, again, he only missed 2 games. It's great. It's great trade value a little bit, but still, he's still a wild card. Were you really going to bank on a guy who still has a skittish like history? It's the same thing with Jason Verrett, when he was getting a little sensitive when he signed, going to training camp. He was getting fed up with the injury questions. Like, I want any more injury questions. It's like, no, Brett, there are going to be injury questions because you barely had just 1 year of health, and you still kind of missed some time early on in 2020. So, this is kind of your deal. You don't end up shaking that off until maybe you strung up a second or third season in a row. Like Eric Armstead, he kind of shook off that injury proneness because he hasn't had an injury since 2018. 19, 20, and now 21. I don't want to hear no more about injuries. Eric Armstead, he's earned that right. He's no longer fragile or injury prone. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo's still injury prone. A second round pick, I think the 49ers still once again going to hold out on a first round pick. But the thing is, who are you going to trade him to? At that point, the first round pick for him would be worth-wise would be above the 15th slot, because only contenders are going to want to trade for him. Not unless you're rebooting and you somehow want to be nuts and give your top 15 pick to Garoppolo, which wouldn't make sense. Yeah. So to me, it also depends on where you're getting the spot at. Like a Steelers second round pick, what would that be? Like 24, 23, something like that? Or if you got like a top 10, top 15 picking in the second round, that would be what, like pick 48, 47? Like that wouldn't be bad. Like if you can get one of those for.
Right now the 49ers earliest pick is 61. So anything.
Yeah, so if you could take that high, maybe package it, and you got all those third round pick. Oh, not all of them, because they're all for futures too.
Right, you got an extra one.
Do something to figure out to get something better. But right now I'm staying firm that he's third round value, and third round value at that point, the Niners gonna be like, what the hell? What are we gonna do with that? Maybe that looks bad. Because I feel like it could be a scenario if his value isn't even a third, if it's just a fourth, then I feel like they would rather save face with Jimmy and want to do right by him and just outright cut him almost. But that would kind of look stupid if they did. But right. I think it's also because they like him and want to help him. They want to give him the choice, like they did Navarro Bowman, because I believe they could have had the chance to trade him somewhere, but they said, "No, we already." And they didn't even grow up with Bowman. That was their first year. They said, "We'll just cut you. We'll just let you get the pick of the litter." So at least maybe do that respect to Jimmy. But to me, you got to trade him no matter what. It doesn't matter what you get. But I think firm, like a third round pick, second round pick is the ceiling. But I'd lean more towards the middleman of like a conditional, just based on the starts.
I see your point. I kind of agree with James Coombs. Remember,
that helps too.
Weak QB draft class could increase value, supply, and demand, and also, as far as available quarterbacks, that have a better resume than Jimmy. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, maybe Russell Wilson, right? Those are the two that people are talking about maybe on the market, but the amount that you'd have to give up to get one of those type of quarterbacks is extremely high.
It's not guaranteed they're even leaving anyways. Everyone knows Jimmy's leaving, so he's for sure a definitive on the market.
Right. I look at it more as far as just where the last quarterback that was traded, as far as like what you got for them. So I look at Carson Wentz. They got a third and a conditional second that ended up turning into a first due to playing time. Because just like Jimmy Garoppolo's issues with injuries, Carson Wentz had the same type of thing. So I can understand, getting that third maybe this year, and then maybe a future conditional pick that could turn into something better based off of whether or not Jimmy could play a certain amount of games. Because if you look at just the resume, Jose, I know we see him every single day, so every single week. So we obviously had our feelings towards Jimmy. But one thing that I've learned talking to my friends that are fans of other teams, outside of the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo is thought of as a better quarterback than maybe some of us inside of the 49ers bubble. So they just look at him in the last 3 years. He's taken the team to 2 NFC championship games, been to the Super Bowl. They look at the team when Jimmy wasn't playing and they're not winning. So, to people that may not watch the team week in and week out, they just see when Jimmy's on the team, they're extremely competitive. When Jimmy's not on the team, they're not very competitive. So I think that there may be a bigger value for Jimmy outside. But I do agree with you. The health is probably the biggest issue. So if they give like a third and a conditional second that can turn into a first, as long as he plays, maybe 80% of the season, 85%, whatever that amount of games is, I could see that happening just because we just saw it from Carson Wentz. And a lot of people want to say, Carson Wentz has had, way bigger numbers than Jimmy Garoppolo. And Carson Wentz, I think, does have like bigger numbers. But that one year that Carson Wentz had that MVP year or type year, he did get injured in that season. And Jimmy Garoppolo had pretty like decent numbers that same year, right? So very similar in QBR, I think it was like 6 less touchdowns, a few more interceptions, even though he did play more games. But still, like it was comparable, I guess, if you put the total numbers together. So I don't know. I just think that
you got to factor in taking on the contract too. That actually adds something to it.
Yeah, so I mean, I just think that if there is a team that really feels like they're just a starting caliber quarterback away and they could get it for a third and a second that may turn into a first, hey, I mean, Jimmy's shown that he could take a team to the playoffs multiple years. So I think you could probably get more, even though, that I think that should be where the level is third future conditional second.